It's Thursday, May 31st, 2012. I'm Rym.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, I'm finally back from Istanbul, and I got stuff to say.
Let's do this.
About the TSA. Actually, I don't. Remember when I went to India? Pretend I said the exact same thing again.
Okay.
Seriously. The only anecdote I have on that front is that...
Well, because didn't you fly from, like, Turkey to Germany at one point?
I flew from the U.S. to Istanbul.
Yep.
From Istanbul to Munich.
Right, so that Istanbul-Munich flight, the security was probably nothing, right?
The security took maybe 5 minutes total.
And you didn't have to take off shoes?
Nope.
Or open bags or any nonsense?
So the flight from Munich to Dusseldorf... there was basically no
use a
security.
Swedish accent for the Germans.
Yet somehow they checked me out more thoroughly than the TSA ever has. It took literally less than a minute to get through security at that airport. I could have shown up to my flight at the airport, as in the front of the airport, 5 minutes before I had to be on the plane, and I would have made it on the plane with about 3 minutes to spare.
How about that?
It was amazing. Seriously, fuck you, the TSA.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you might say, oh, well, but how many hijackings have there been on German-Turkish flights?
Well,
and those are, you know, and Turkey isn't exactly the most stable place. There's angry people there.
Well, even more interesting was that when I was in Terminal 1 at JFK to fly out to Istanbul in the first part, you know, that's like the international terminal. Like, it's mostly just airlines that go to other cities.
It's not nearly as nice as the JetBlue one.
Nah, it's pretty crappy. But it was mostly foreigners flying back home when I happened to be flying out. And the security line, at one point, you know, basically this TSA guy had to keep pulling an Oticon staff. You must remove your shoes before you can get in. And no one would take their shoes off, like they didn't get it.
Because they didn't understand English, a lot of people probably.
And when they got it, the looks on their faces ranged from disgusted to aghast.
Yes.
This one British lady was just like, what? These fucking Americans.
That's right. Fuck us.
Yeah, it sucks. To the rest of the world, I apologize anytime you have to fly here.
Do not, you know, Rym is always trying to say, like, do not conflate my opinions with Scott's.
No. In
right?
this case...
Do not conflate our, you know, beliefs and opinions with the behaviors of our government.
Specifically the TSA, because I signed, you know, Rand Paul, for those of you who aren't American, is a crazy idiot, but he's in our political system. He's the son of Ron Paul, who is also a crazy idiot. So Rand Paul is trying to put forth real legislation to literally abolish the TSA. I signed his petition, and I think he is one of the craziest people I have ever seen in American politics.
You can go around to the craziest of crazy people, right?
Scott, I'll go, you can take a clock and fucking break it, and it'll still be right at least once a day.
No, a clock depends how it's broken. If it's stopped, see, everyone says a broken clock is right twice a day. That's not correct. A stopped clock is right twice a day.
Well,
right?
Scott, if I make
fast or a slow clock is never right.
Actually, it will be right. There's modulus math involved.
Yeah, once like a year or month, depending on how slow it is, or something like that.
So what if?
But it's right
Scott,
less often than twice a day.
I argue that you're wrong.
Okay.
Do you want my argument?
All right.
All right, I'm going to make a clock that moves 4 times faster than it should.
Oh, then it's right even more often.
How many times right is it per day?
Okay, but let me ask you this question.
Yeah?
Ron Paul, take your pick, right? Fast clocks or slow clocks?
I'd rather a clock be fast.
But I'm saying they are slow clocks. That's what I'm saying.
To say that they are slow clocks is
they are not fast clocks.
Not the fastest clocks in the
They
shed
may
by any
be
stretch.
indeed. They may be stopped clocks, which are right twice a day. But they are neither fast nor are they, you know, accurately keeping time. Atomic clocks.
I think Ron Paul's
NTP clocks. They are either slow or stopped.
I think Ron Paul's is slow. And or maybe stop, probably just slow, because he's trying to, you know, hold us back.
Well, slow is actually right less often than stopped, right?
Yes.
Stopped is right twice a day. Slow is right, you know, depends how slow it is. It could be so slow, right, that it actually goes backwards.
But I think
and then it's right pretty often.
I think Rand Paul is more the erratic clock, where the hands just materialize at random positions over
Well, then
time.
there's absolutely no way to know how often it's right.
You know what the Rand Paul clock does is periodically it says, see, what you've got is fiat time.
Okay, let's move on here. So,
the only reason I even brought up stupid Rand Paul, TSA aside, is that I was reading FARC at the airport on my way on the trip, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Of course.
there was an article, I forget, it was a technology article. I forget even what it was about. And the first comment was 3 paragraphs. And I have a
first post or just the top comment?
The first post.
Okay.
And I have I think this might be a law of the internet, but I need a lot more data on it. If someone is a Rand or Ron Paul, I could make a regular expression, R dot star.
R star Paul.
Yeah, it's some sort of regex. If you're one of those supporters, you cannot post anything on the internet without mentioning fiat currency and Eurozone, Global Reserve, or Federal Reserve, or IMF. Well, at least 2 of those things within 2 sentences of any post on the internet. So anyway, what'd I miss?
Not much. So the only news I got, at least it was the first news that I found when I was looking through my news list here, is that Toonami has returned.
Is it the turn of the tide?
No. So here's what happened, right? So on May 26th, Adult Swim posted a message that was like, Toonami's actually coming back for reals. Because remember, they had the April Fool's comeback that was sort of like the fake comeback, but now it's come back for real. So they brought it back for reals. And basically what they did is they took their existing sort of Adult Swim anime block and they added 2 shows, Kasern Sins and Dead Man Wonderland, and they put them up at midnight on some day for a bunch of hours. And there was a tweet today or yesterday, I think it was today, that was, of the guy who runs it, I guess. And he was like, the ratings were okay, not the greatest, but they were okay, and it's like, okay. People were clamoring, because, I don't know about you, but I would get home from school and watch Toonami every freaking day.
But that's the problem. What did you just say?
It was on at midnight.
You would get home from school to watch Toonami.
Exactly.
It was on when normal people watch things.
Exactly, right?
In an era when television and time mattered.
So, yeah, not only does television no longer matter in this day as opposed to the day when I was, in high school and middle school, right? But in addition, you want to make a particular kind of thing popular, it's got to be on when people are watching. And when do kids watch? When they get home from school, right? Bring back Toonami doesn't mean, okay, show some shows that you're already going to show probably, and the bumpers in between those shows have Tom the Robot in them. That's not what Bring Back Toonami means. Bring Back Toonami means that between 2:33 and 6-7 at night, every single weekday, you show a block of nerdy programming ranging from, Herculoids, Hanna-Barbera, Space Ghost, to BTAS, to Gundam, to Dragon Ball, to brand new animes, or, who knows what. Bleach, I don't even care. Naruto, I don't, whatever. You got it. Show it. All right? That's what Bring Back Toonami means.
Well, no, that's what Bring Back Toonami means to people who understand the importance of Toonami.
Right.
Most people are on a weird nostalgia trip, and this is not targeted at what the original Toonami did, which is getting people into these things. This is targeted at making those people who have nostalgia for Toonami become marketable to with ads on TV.
Sell some slightly more expensive ads and maybe a few more spots.
And they put it on
at a time period where we're not selling so many ads.
Exactly. They put it on a bad time period because they're only selling to people who want to watch Toonami.
Yeah, remember,
as opposed to people
when
who
the
will turn it on
TV
by
executives are looking at the program schedule, they're looking at dollars per second across the whole board. So if there's an area that's weak in dollars per second, that's the area they reprogram to get the dollars per second of advertising money and that time slot on that day to go up. That's what they do. So anyway, but I just want to reiterate a point that I have made many times, that is a more general point. This is just another example of it. So whenever you find a new example of something, you got to, is that companies these days, especially companies that have existed for a while, they like to pretend to try new things and then say that they did or did not or partially worked or partially didn't work based on only dipping the toe in the water. So for the greatest example, of course, is the digitization of things, right? It's like, okay, guys, we will sell you, music digitally. So they dip the toe in the water and it's like, okay, we sold you a few of the tracks for $5 each with some DRMs and only in this one place and it only work on iPods. It's like, you only dipped the toe in. Of course it didn't fucking work. And then they try to say, oh, selling digital music doesn't work because you didn't jump in the pool. If you actually jump in the pool and go whole hog on something, that is the only time you can determine whether it does or does not work. But there is no dispute. You risk drowning when you jump in the pool, right?
Yep.
So everyone's so afraid of drowning, they won't jump in the pool for anything. And because no one jumps in the pool for anything, no one can actually prove or disprove that things do or do not work. If you want to say bringing back Toonami would or would not work, you cannot say that unless you do exactly what we said, which is every day after school for a long period of time, at least long enough to get an audience, to build an audience. These things don't happen overnight. It takes investment and, risking of drowning. And that's the only way that you can make a determination of it will or will not work. Unless you do that, you can't be like, oh, the ratings are okay. You didn't do it. You're putting your pinky toe in the water and saying, oh, I can't swim. I'll drown if I swim. You don't know that. You just put your toe in the water.
Well, the thing is, they don't need to. The majority of people don't think of this or care.
No. I'm not. I mean, that particular example. But I mean, in general, companies like to say this works, this doesn't work. Well, you haven't done it, so you don't know, right?
Yep.
Hasbro make toys that, don't have brushy hair, right? They just have solid hair that looks exactly like the show. You won't know if they will sell or won't, even though they will.
Well, we know they will because of the sheer amount of bootlegs.
Right. But, why, even though we do know that mostly, we're pretty sure, you don't know because you haven't done it. So, there you go.
So, not too long after I got back, I actually went out because people were losing their shit about The Avengers, the new movie. So I figured, you know what? I'll go see it.
You went to see it in the theater?
So I went to see it in the
Whether
theater.
they're screaming babies or kids or loud people or
no, it was
tall
mostly
people
full.
in the way?
It wasn't that bad. I went to a nice theater. It was
okay.
But it was okay. It was a mediocre to average, okay, pretty enjoyable movie.
Well,
but it was literally nothing special, and I can't imagine ever needing to see it again.
Well, I mean, I haven't seen any superhero live-action movie.
You would have hated it.
That wasn't Batman.
I know you would have hated it. You hate
since I saw the first Spider-Man one, recent one.
You hate quips. You hate one-liners. You hate Joss Whedon. You would hate everything about this movie.
Well, I like one-liners if they're good, but a one-liner can't carry a movie.
The
right?
one-liners
One-liners are for Simpsons episodes, Futuramas, or
don't forget Total Recall. See you at the party, Richter.
Right, but I mean, the Total Recall.
He could have said, do you need a hand?
It has one-liner. I mean, I haven't even seen this, right? But it's like, are you telling me that one-liners are what carries the movie? That's all it's got.
No. What I'm saying is that the one-liners that were there were really good, and there were a lot of great scenes that were very satisfying. It was a fun movie, but it was about 45 minutes too long. It had 2 extra Avengers, and the soundtrack was, I can't even say forgettable. It was garbage.
Mm-hmm.
I literally...
Like you hear the music and you're like, turn this music off.
So during dramatic scenes, I'm listening to the music, I'm like, wow, this is what a high school kid would think
it stands out as sort of cheesy and misplaced.
It stands out as, this is the dramatic song. This is the song between scenes. This is the song when an action scene is about to start. This is the ominous song.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm gonna make a live action U.S. movie with English speaking people.
Yeah.
Maybe even superheroes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get Yuki Kaiji or Yoko Kanno to do the music.
My God.
Right? No one, these people, they don't work crossways.
But
why don't we get Joss Whedon to write some anime and have Japanese, Studio IG or Production IG make the show, right?
Yep.
Mix it up. We gotta get some cross country workings going on because we got talented peoples in particular areas. They got to team up with talented peoples in the other areas.
Yep. I mean, Yuki Kaiji could have saved that movie because the thing is, I watched 1 3/4 awful shows, and I thought they were good just because of that music. It took me a while to realize the shows were garbage.
Yeah, right.
Noir and Dot Hack.
I watched half of Dot Hack. I watched all of Noir. I watched
all of Noir.
2 episodes of Kazuto or whatever.
There was a point at 12 or 13 episodes into Noir when I was like, this isn't really that good. But then music would play and I'd be like, oh, this is the best show ever. This is great. But
anyway.
The soundtrack was nothing. Dragonheart, which actually had a pretty shit soundtrack.
Dragonheart or Dragon Heat?
Dragonheart.
I am the last one.
I had a better soundtrack, even though it was mostly songs that are also in other movies.
I don't remember any songs from Dragonheart.
There's one particular one that's in a lot of movie trailers, for random movies.
Yeah, I have a feeling.
Yeah. But this movie was just average, okay, literally nothing special.
It's because I'm telling you, I haven't seen it, so I don't know. Maybe, there is a non-zero chance that I would like it, but I've never liked anything Joss Whedon's ever done, so I doubt it. But the point is it's obvious that nerds, a great majority of nerds, right? I'm among them. I know them. All right, they seem to like a thing just based on like these surface elements, and people even come to me like, Scott, you should like this. It has this character in it that you like, and
well,
it's
they tried to pull that on Avengers. They're like, Scott, Thanos is in it at the end.
Right.
He's going to be in the next
and
movie.
It's like, why would that mean that I'm going to like it? I mean, what are some of my favorite characters in things?
Kenshiro, Lupin.
Yeah, right. I would say Kenshiro and Lupin, right? So you come to me and say, hey, Scott, there's a comic and Kenshiro is in it. Well, that, I like Kenshiro. He's a cool dude, but that doesn't mean I'm going to like that thing. But for some people, it seems like that is true. Like, you can make some piece of crap and put ponies in it, and some bronies and think is the best thing ever, even though it sucks.
Well, the thing is,
right? And that's what it is. That I think that a lot of nerds, you can just take something, and as long as their favorite characters are in it, there's a good chance that they will like it, as long as it's not like blatantly awful.
But favorite characters. Whose favorite character is Hawkeye? He might as well have not even been in that movie. He served zero purpose.
There are people who like that.
Oh, Hawkeye is a pointless character. He literally in this movie doesn't. They could have just cut him out and no one would have noticed.
Well, do you know about Hawkeye in the comics at all?
Bow and arrow guy.
Yeah, he's a bow and arrow guy.
Yeah.
But basically, he was a bad...
That's what I know about him.
He basically, his typical thing is he was the bad guy, he was also the good guy, he was also the bad guy.
In this movie, they brainwashed him, and then he got to be a bad guy for most of the movie.
See, that's what I was trying to discuss earlier, but I, held it, right? Is that in the comics, it's actually cool, well, somewhat cool, at least the first time that he basically goes back and forth between good guy and bad guy because they replay the same story because they have no new ideas. But the original story is that he wasn't a bad guy because he was brainwashed. He was just a bad guy, right? And then when he becomes a good guy, he's still a bad guy. It's sort of like having, a guy on your team that's like, Locke the Thief, only sort of evil and jerky, right? And you should have put him in jail. It's sort of like when the X-Men will team up with Magneto, or they'll have to work with Dr. Doom this time. Except it's different from that because he's always there. It's like if Dr. Doom joined the Fantastic Four permanently, and he's just always there with them. And when they're looking at him,
that would be pretty great.
And he's always doing the right thing. But he's still Dr. Doom.
Yeah,
Dr.
Doom does not look like a good guy.
And he's still evil, and he still says evil things and talks like an evil guy and has evil ideas, and he used to be an evil, horrible dictator. It would be like if you were marching into fight and Stalin was there right next to you, and it's Stalin. It's like, what the hell are you doing here?
He's like, guys, let's
save
the day.
You want to shoot him, but his actions at this moment are noble actions, even though all his thoughts, words, and past actions are evil. All of his present and future actions are good, and you're keeping an eye on him, and that's the cool part of Hawkeye. And very few comics actually draw that cool part out.
Yeah,
but that's the cool part.
Well, anyway, my biggest complaint, then we can move on, is that
brainwashing him completely defeats that purpose.
Yeah, well, he served no purpose in the movie anyway. He was completely pointless.
Right,
but the movie was crazy long, and there's this gigantic action scene at the end, like a superhero movie, summer blockbuster, but it had all these vignettes where they'd save particular civilians around the city, in the course of everything. And it went on forever. This scene just wouldn't end. And the way it played out, all those vignettes in the middle of the fight literally didn't matter at all. They had no effect. They might as well have not been there. That fight could have been half as long. And it did the typical cut around all the time. There's no real choreography. Which is more and more common, in the Transformers movies, that I can't stand that kind of action scene. I hate it when there's, they use fast cuts to cover up the fact that they didn't actually choreograph anything in three-dimensional space.
Mm-hmm.
It was a mediocre movie. That's all I can say. And I predict that the next Avengers movie not going to be received as well as this one.
Well, I mean,
because they're going full Thanos space bullshit as far as I can tell.
the thing is, if you do the space bullshit, right? You know, and I'm a big fan of that. I read
I think you're going to say the same thing Emily said, so continue.
I've read a large number of Marvel Outer Space cosmic
Thanos,
comics.
Infinity Gauntlet.
I've read all those, and I actually like those a lot, even though I recognize they're not exactly the greatest, but I like them a lot. And the reason that I like them so much is because they're crazy, psychedelic, and weird, right? It's like everything is sort of like Jack Kirby crackle all over the place, crazy colors, and it's not a whole lot of just fighting. And, you know, I mean, when they do fight, they just sort of blast energy beams at each other. But, you know, it's not really usually a matter of just I'm stronger than you or whoever wins is for the plot or something like that, right? It's usually, okay, you know, we're shooting energy beams at each other, but what really is going on is this sort of weird, tripped out sort of LSD mind battles, right, that go on. You know, it's like, you know, even though on the page it's a drawing of like Adam Warlock shooting like a beam out of a scepter, like a you know, Merlin the Wizard against, you know, I don't know, you know, Eternity. Well, what's Eternity? Eternity is this huge guy who is the living embodiment of the entire universe and all of existence. And he's just sort of like this outline and of this big, gigantic guy with like weird tentacle hair and like tentacles coming out of the sides of his body, sort of like Washington's, you know, dicks coming out of his legs. But they used a bucket tool to paint him, and the bucket tool drew stars and planets and galaxies and all sorts of stuff. And it's like, they're not putting that fucked up, mind trippy shit in no live action mainstream movie.
They might try.
No, they're not. They're not going to have a giant guy who looks like outer space. They're not going to have Ego the Living Planet, you know, floating around talking to Quasar with his quantum bands.
I think the reason I think the movie is going to be bad is more that they go the road of Thanos, which one, they show him, but nobody knows who that is.
And you know, and the other thing is nerds know who he is.
Yeah,
right?
the stinger is they show a guy, and if you know, you're like,
all right. So
Thanos.
let's talk about what Thanos' deal is. Thanos is a guy from Titan, you know, the Moon Titan, right, where there was a society of Titans, but he was sort of like
Titan,
right? He was sort of a runt. Right, sort of like a, you know, deformed runt. He's all purple and nasty and sort of giant chin, and you could tell he was a Titan from that planet, but he didn't fit in, and he was sort of evil. So he's actually a worshiper of death, as in the Grim Reaper, except death is a god, a literal existing god, who's like this lady who wears a dark robe, who's a skeleton, and she never speaks, and he literally worships her. Literally, like goes to, there's Death, the Grim Reaper, and she's the god of death of the entire universe, and there's this dude worshiping her, and as a sacrifice to her, you know, he wants to bring about a lot of death. So he goes and gets the Infinity Gauntlet and to kill half the population of the universe with a snap of his fingers because he wants, you know, Death to like him, so he'll, you know, make out with him. So here's the
problem is going to happen.
Right? That kind of fucked up shit is not going to go in a mainstream movie.
The thing is, they're bringing him in, so what are they going to do? My problem is
he's going to be generic alien powerful bad guy.
My problem is, what's the plot going to be? You've got the crazy existential space stuff, you know, and then you've got Hawkeye.
They're going to remove any of the existential parts.
If they would just remove Hawkeye.
You know, in the Infinity Gauntlet, when all basically the not dead superheroes, because half of everyone died, right, go to fight, you know, Thanos up on this giant floating castle he made that looks sort of like Castle Grayskull for Death to live in and hang out in. You know, even Spider-Man goes up there, and Spider-Man's like, what the fuck am I going to do? He's like, well, look, this guy's pretty much omnipotent, omniscient, et cetera, so even, you know, your tiny web shot, we got to basically all punch him at the same time, otherwise this isn't going to work. So, you know, everyone goes, the cosmic guys with the real powers like Silver Surfer make the real difference, but your one bow and arrow shot might do something. It couldn't hurt to have it in there. You know, we got no one else. We're bringing everybody. No. So.
What I was amazed by, though, is in our forum, I basically said it was a pretty good movie, but it had some flaws. And people treated that like I'd said it was the worst movie ever, and they were bad people.
No, that's...
Like, people...
Welcome to my world.
Defended this movie to
Firefly
a degree.
sucks.
Firefly was pretty good.
Yeah,
I like Firefly.
Just saying. This is welcome to my world.
I think you're wrong about Firefly, but
I disagree.
Digress.
If a majority of nerds sort of agree on something for whatever reason and you disagree, they act like, you know, and then they yell at you for doing the same thing.
I think it's more a situation of the lady doth protesteth too much. That when flaws are pointed out in something that someone, because remember, I watched it after everyone else had already seen it, And they were posting things like, I'm going to go see it a third time. Oh my God, that was the best movie ever. And then I was like, yeah, it was okay. They either have to accept the flaws I pointed out or defend their previous opinion.
This is what I'm understanding. It's like either A, defend your opinion, which people often refuse or fail to do, or B, do what we do, which is when you like something and you know deep in your heart, or you know well out shallow in your heart or in your mind that it's not that good, just admit it. I like Initial D. It sucks. If I liked Avengers enough to see it 5 times, I wouldn't be like all shy about it. You know?
Before we go any further, I should make it clear to people who don't read the forum, I don't necessarily agree with all Scott's opinions here. Don't conflate me with him.
I'd be like, yeah, I saw it 5 times. It's okay, but I love it. It's up my alley. It's my thing.
But I had people defending like why Hawkeye was in the movie. I was like, really? Really? You could cut him out and not change any of the dialogue, and it would still make mostly the same sense.
You should make a Hawkeye cut.
I think I could. I won't. I don't care enough, but I could.
I mean, it would be very long, and it would be pretty right. But you could do the opposite. Hawkeye
only. The movie
only.
was so long, I almost fell asleep during the last fight. And even though there's a bunch of stuff after the credits, a lot of the audience just got up and left because the movie was so long.
Well, were they nerds? Did they not know? Or were
no, there was a guy. As soon as the first like credit comes up, like it's over. This guy's like, don't leave, don't leave. There's shit after the credits. Don't leave, don't leave, don't leave. And he got like really agitated when people started leaving.
That's a nerd.
Yep.
Did you leave?
No, because I wanted to see what the stingers were.
Was the stuff worth it? Waiting
so
through
the first
credits?
one, spoilers, was the Thanos. Great.
Okay.
The second one was actually pretty good.
Was it just like a funny joke?
Yes, it was just a joke.
Okay.
But it was actually like the way it was really funny. I was really pleased with it.
If it was so funny, why don't you put it in the movie?
It was better that it wasn't in the movie.
Okay. It's that kind of joke.
It wouldn't have been the same joke had it been a scene in the movie. And they get points for hypnotoading it a little bit. As in, the scene happens, and you're like, oh, I get it. And it just sits there for a while. You just keep watching it. Thor's like picking it. I'm not saying what it is, but
picking his nose?
No. They're all just out eating shawarma.
Okay.
Silently. They're just sitting there like eating it in like the kind of place you get cheap shawarma in New York.
Sort of like when Aquaman goes in that bar.
Basically, yeah. And there's like a guy in the background like mopping, and they're just sitting there, and Thor like he takes a bite and he kind of just looks at it like, eh. He takes another bite, and they're just sitting there.
Yeah, that's how they do.
Chewing.
See, that's the kind of superhero movie I wish they would make, which is, those are the parts of the superhero comics I like the most, which is guy happens to be a superhero, but he's just hanging out. He's not necessarily jumping around, punching, saving the universe.
I'll up the ante. You know what superhero movie I want? I just want Batman Dark Knight Returns, the movie.
Too much Batman. We need to go and take the superheroes that nobody knows about, no one cares about.
Raccoon Girl?
You mean Squirrel Girl?
Whatever. I don't know.
No. She's only a joke. She's not really.
Okay, how about that raccoon guy?
What raccoon guy?
There's a little raccoon guy.
Oh, Rocket Raccoon?
Yeah.
The guy's actually a raccoon?
Yeah, let's make a movie for him.
Yeah, he's also outer space and sort of...
Yeah.
Well, he's more pulp outer space, like Flash Gordon style.
Let's make a crossover between him and Howard the Duck.
You could actually make a really good movie that was like the Rocket Raccoon movie, and you could use Beatles music if you could afford it, and it could just be like sort of a Flash Gordon, kind of like... da-da-da, right?
Maybe.
All like action-packed and, sort of a little bit like cheesy on purpose, because he's a raccoon with like a laser gun, right?
Yeah. But anyway, things of the day. So, every now and then I pull out the hockey fights, and
it's definitely the hockey season.
I'm thinking it's a good hockey
Kings.
season. This is one
Devils
of the best.
suck.
This is one of the best Stanley Cup seasons I've been paying attention to in a long time.
Burn in hell, Devils. Go
so
Kings.
many Game 7, so many overtimes.
I mean, come on, look at it. It's Kings and Devils. How could you possibly not root for Kings?
Well, one, got to root for the underdog. Two, Kings.
I don't think no one's an underdog in the Stanley Cup Finals.
When was the last time the Kings won a Stanley Cup?
Did Gretzky win a Stanley Cup on the Kings, or did he win them all in Edmonton?
That's what I'm asking you. When was the last time the Kings got a Stanley
Cup? I'm going
Cup?
To the Wikipedia.
When was the last time the Kings were in the Stanley Cup Finals?
That is also an excellent question. Stanley Cups for the Kings, 0. So even though Wayne Gretzky was there for how many years, he won all his cups with Edmonton.
That is why I'm rooting for the Kings, because I remember how crazy Detroit was
The
when
only
we
thing
broke
I
our
can-
streak in 96, 97.
The only thing I can say bad about the Kings is that they're in Los Angeles, which is well below
I'm pretty sure
the
if the Kings
latitude
win the Stanley
at
Cup,
which
Los
hockey should be
Angeles
permitted.
might burn down. Like the city will
Mm.
spontaneously erupt with passion.
Okay, so conference championships, they were in 92-93 season, they were in the finals. So there you go.
I'm rooting for them. Also, I don't want anyone else.
Devils, pieces of shit.
No. Devils knocked the Red Wings out a couple of times in my life, so they were already on my shit list. Then I moved to New York, so
Devils they suck.
good hockey. But,
Can't
there's
let
all this
Brodeur
talk about
retire.
football and how football is actually super bad for people, and not to get into all that, but
Hockey is also really
hockey's
bad.
pretty bad for people, and hockey
It's
fights.
really bad.
As much as I like hockey fights, I would actually be okay if they got rid of that.
It's tough because I like watching a hockey fight, but at the same time, I cannot come up with a single argument to defend the continued existence of hockey fights.
Well, one argument against continuing them is that
There's
we
plenty
have,
of those.
We have YouTube now. I can see pretty much every video recorded hockey fight that ever happened.
Left.
I think that's still the best one
That's
ever.
the best one.
I've never seen a hockey fight that is better than that. But for anyone who doesn't know, on March 17th, 1991, there was a Chicago and St. Louis hockey game. This is before HDTV, obviously, before any of that stuff. And I'm going to read a quote from Adam Oates about this fight. Quote, "It was weird. I was pretty scared, I'll tell you that. Let me rephrase that, terrified. Grimson, Manson, Peluso, and they had 10 bodies on the ice." So this is a almost 5-minute long video of one of the most famous and spectacular bench-clearing hockey brawls of all time. It's pretty amazing. At one point, it looks like they're going to drag someone from the stands into the fight. There's so many independent fights that the refs can't do anything about it. I just watch it. It's amazing.
See, this is the thing, right? It's like I'm sure there are people who remember this particular fight, and it maybe even has a name or something.
The St. Patrick's Day Massacre.
There you go, right? But it's not nearly all that famous, even though it was a gigantic fight, huge, guys beating each other up all over the place, right? But yet, right, in basketball, fights are extremely rare, right? So rare, in fact, that there's really only one famous basketball fight, which is the Malice at the Palace. Now, the Malice at the Palace, fight-wise, between the players, was really not all that bad as the St. Patrick's Day Massacre. Yet, the Malice at the Palace is extremely famous, mostly because, at one point, dude gets hit with a cup of liquid that was thrown from the stands, and then the fighting goes in with the fans.
Well,
Right? So,
think of it this way.
if there were no walls at a hockey game,
well,
imagine.
I mean, already that glass is barely keeping the crowd out of
That's
the
what I'm
ice.
saying, is that there's no glass. Right?
You know what you'll get? You'll get what happens at soccer games.
I know. It would be unbelievable.
Now, the only difference is the people in the stands, drunk and full of passion as they are not wearing skates and probably have forgotten that ice is slippery. So it would be great, but not for the reasons that you'd expect it to be great.
No, but at the Malice at basketball, they went into the players went into the stands.
I remember at RIT when they were taunting a guy in the box, and he actually tried to hit someone in the stands with his stick.
Yeah, in between the panels
Yep.
of glass. Yeah, he got in big trouble.
This is a pretty good hockey fight.
Very good.
So,
Oh, thing
Got
of
a
the day,
thing?
right. So for those of you who don't live in the U.S., you may not know, we have these two holidays, Veterans Day and Memorial Day, right? So Veterans Day is for people who were in the military or war and are no longer in the military. And Memorial Day is for people who are dead because of war, right? So there is a distinction between the two holidays. I mean, someone asked me, why do we have two holidays for this? I'm like, because they're not the same. It's memorial, right? You're in memory of dead people, and veteran, a person who was formerly, serving.
well, as opposed to President's Day, where we took all these other days and we're like, all right, you just get one day off.
Yeah. So here is a video of, so Memorial Day was on Monday, which means you didn't go to work. It's bank holiday for UK types.
Yep.
So we have a cemetery in Washington, D.C. It's actually, I think, just outside of I don't know if it's technically D.C. I guess it's Arlington, right? Maryland or whatever. And it's Arlington Cemetery. It is the, national military cemetery. And it's just basically most of it is just a sea of small white crosses as far as you can see. And there is a place at the cemetery where I've been that is the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And it's a dead U.S. soldier in a tomb, and we don't know who it is. So it's symbolically, it's nobody and everybody at the same time. And there's a guard who walks back and forth in front of this, thing with a gun.
Now, it's America, so tourists do what tourists do.
Right. So, in Britain, there's those guards. What are they called at the palace with the funny hats?
The Royal Palace Guards?
I don't know what they're actually called. They have a name. But there's people always make jokes about how you can mess around with them and they'll never do anything. Right? They just sort of keep minding their own business and being perfectly still and silent, right?
The Queen's Guard.
Right. So the guard, the singular guard at the, Tomb of the Unknown Soldier paces, back and forth or marches back, whatever the word is, back and forth. And then occasionally they have a changing of the guard, which is a ceremony that, because you can't, not one person can't do that for that long, right?
Yep.
So and you can't just sort of walk off and have another guy walk in and start doing it. It's sort of lame, right? You got a little ceremony. And that's what you do when you go to the cemetery is you watch this ceremony. Now, the thing is, unlike, the guards in Britain, if you dick around, this guard is actually guarding and he will yell at you. He'll be like, first of all, you're not allowed to talk near the thing. You're not allowed to go on the platform where the tomb is. You're not allowed to go over the railing. You're not, you pretty much have to stand during the ceremony. You can't sit unless I guess you're in a wheelchair or something, right? You have to maintain, I guess he said, an atmosphere of silence and whatever at all times. So if you fuck around, the guard yells at you, and I don't know what they'll do if you keep fucking around, but since so many tourists go there, there's a lot of yelling.
This guy does a really good job of telling tourists to stop being dumbasses.
Yeah, so there's a video montage here of multiple different guards yelling at stupid tourists in many different ways.
So why can't...
I kind of want to go there for like a couple days and just sit there and film any time that he has to yell at someone, because I'll probably pick up like 10 more that I can add to this montage.
What I would like to know is, if there's any soldiers who are bored, I would love for you to just patrol around New York City.
Sometimes I wish you could sign up for the military just to get this sort of job, right? It's like I don't want to have to be shot at or kill anyone.
You want to yell at people.
Right, but I would love to get the ceremonial job. The thing is, the ceremonial job is usually a great honor that you have to earn by being a real soldier.
That's the trouble.
It's not just something that okay, we're going to let the guy who sucks so much do the easy job.
Well,
it's
Scott,
no, you earn the easy job.
When we asked, there was the kart racing club. And we were like, can we join the club as racers and train to drive the cars?
It's no, you have to earn that.
And we were like, yeah, never mind. I got more important things to do.
Yeah, there's other things that I will, because you only have enough effort in your life to earn one thing, or two things that are worth earning, right? There's a lot of things you want to earn, but you can't buy them. You can't just walk into them. So just pick your battles. Right, if you try to do all those great things, drive the F1 car and guard the tomb, and you're not going to make it. It's not going to happen, no matter how awesome you are.
So very briefly, in the meta moment, ConnectiCon's coming up. Check out the website. Most of the schedule's up. Most of the rest of it will be up in the next day or two.
Yep.
We'll be there doing stuff.
Yep.
Dave Riley will be there doing stuff.
Snap.
Fast karate.
Snap.
It's good stuff.
Snap. Okay, also in the meta moment, the book club book is 1Q84.
I'm going to start calling it QT84.
You can do that because you think it's clever. I don't think it's correct, though.
I think it's correct. I think it works.
it is not correct.
I think it is a worthwhile translation. That's how you would say that number.
No, it's not.
And
anyway,
in the context of the book, that's how it's used anyway.
The actual title of the book is Ichikyu Hachi Yon or something, right?
Yeah.
It's the 4 numbers separately.
So you shouldn't say 1984. You should say 1984.
I said 1Q84.
Yeah, so 1Q84.
That's right.
Yeah, I still think it's going to be QT84.
Anyway.
Because it's cute.
That's the book.
It's a pretty damn good book. I'm mostly done with it.
I already finished it because it was so good. So good. But we'll give you some more time before we do an episode because while I don't think it's long, it is 3 volumes, 900 pages to make up for the fact that I did a bunch of baby books.
The one thing I will say is that I went into it reading, I literally knew nothing about what it was.
The only things
I didn't even read the back of the book or anything.
This is the only thing that I knew going into it was it was written by Haruki Murakami, and I know that is a person who is an extremely famous Japanese author, so famous that his books are translated and sold across the world.
I knew Emily had read another work that was, quote, Weird.
And that almost every anime person and lots of other people are always citing this guy as like an influence because he's like so important and amazing. So I'm like, well, I should probably know what this guy's all about. This is his latest, greatest, super popular work that I see everyone reading on the subway and such. Let's read it.
So,
Also,
but what I wanted to say is that I got halfway through, like literally like the 50% mark on the Kindle.
On the Kindle, yeah.
So halfway through the second book. And I realized suddenly that the normal novels, it was like building up to the kind of climax that ends most books. And I realized that that was literally the halfway point.
Yeah.
So I'm getting near the end now, so I'm starting to see where this is going. But
it's going to be hard not to discuss before the episode. Maybe we should record the episode while it's fresh.
I think we should.
And then put it up later and after people have had time, because I understand not everyone can read 900 pages
if I don't finish it
in
this
5
weekend,
days like I can.
I might...
Not to brag.
Not the kind of an aside, but I might have to fly to Toronto next week, Monday and Tuesday.
You don't want to go there.
No. Children have cigarette ads instead of faces.
Don't bring wicker goods with you.
Wicker goods are taxed there. I don't want my wicker goods to be taxed.
and keep her. Don't look at the donut ads.
I wonder how many people get that. I wonder how
the
obscure that actually is.
The Canadians get it.
They'd better. The funny thing is, I remember at RIT, I was looking for that song to get an MP3 of it, and I found a different song about Toronto that has the same moral, but is very different.
Yeah.
Anyway, but you made me lose my... Right. I might be out of town those 2 days, meaning you guys should play the Burning Wheel game without me because we missed one already.
We could also play an alternative game, which I suggested that last time, but no one said anything.
If you want to play Burning Wheel, I'll just figure out some pre-rolls I would want to do, and I can roll them with a witness for things I want to do, like link tests and all that, and then my character's off doing that shit.
You could also practice hours.
No, I want to roll, things that may or may not.
You don't get things that matter if you don't show up. You get practice hours.
I could do link tests.
I'm not the GM. It's not my call, but that's what I would do if I was GM.
We'll
I'd be
see.
like, you get practice hours.
But if I have to go to Toronto next week, I pretty much guarantee I'll finish the book on the flight there.
Oh, yeah. You should bring a second book with
I
you.
also learned something weird. I've never flown to Toronto. I've always lived near enough to just drive to it. Or I guess I could have taken that fast ferry.
Yeah, I guess there's really no reason to fly there. I mean, I guess maybe now there is, but...
Yeah. But, so I learned that if you fly out of Newark, which sucks because now I got to fly out of Newark, you can take this little, like, Porter Air thing that lands at this tiny little airport, like, in the middle of downtown Toronto.
Really?
And you take, like, this little ferry, like, right to downtown.
Oh.
And there's, like, no security there, and it's, like, the best little airport. And I had no idea this existed. And while I have to deal with Newark, and I hate Newark.
Isn't it going to be like a tiny plane, like propellers?
If it is, whatever. I got noise isolation earbuds. And you know what? I've flown puddle jumpers before.
You should probably team up with some people, get the private jet so it's quieter.
We're not sending that many people.
Gulfstream, 10 people.
Yeah. It'll be maybe 2 people.
No, 9 people other than, like, from other companies. Team up, charter.
There is a financial event there, but...
yeah, I'm sure there's other financial people who are going that have a seat.
We'll see.
Anyway, so final meta, I upgraded the whole website.
Oh, I haven't even gone to it since you upgraded it.
So I upgraded the whole website.
You see how busy I've been with ConnectiCon.
Yeah, I know no one goes to our...
Oh my God, there's a lot of words.
Yeah, so I know nobody goes to our website, and you can if you want to, but it's not necessary because basically... The new website is it's mostly just there for Google to see it, right? And
it's
of course,
way more words than before.
And people who like to visit it. As soon as you add videos, there'll be a video on the homepage.
Yeah, we should add some videos.
You also got to add in the old... Well, I'm going to try to get them automatically from the YouTube API.
Yeah.
And you can also, Rym, add in the book clubs that are missing.
I think they're all in the regular website.
No, when I loaded the database, the latest one was...
I added all my books.
No, go look at the...
I did add them.
Look at it later.
You
anyway.
pig fucker, I added them. I typed that shit in. I remember sitting there and doing it.
Sure, the latest one was, I think, I forget. Anyway. So... the main thing this website does, the new version of the website, is automatically linking things together. So it posts things to Facebook automatically, and it posts things to Twitter automatically, right? And it posts things to the forum automatically, and we're going to do even more stuff along those lines. We can't do G+ automatically. We still have to do it by hand.
For now.
Because Google doesn't have an API. It's not because I didn't write it.
Yep.
However, I'm going to add like a mail newsletter, and I'm going to automatically connect it to YouTube. So basically, wherever you are, I might even connect it to a Tumblr and have like a Tumblr that is an exact copy, right? it's gonna be like a dandelion. Just spread your seeds all over the fuck, right? So no matter what thing it is you like to use, Google Reader, iTunes, whatever you like to use to connect to us, just keep using that thing you like. And you can come to our website if you want, but our website is going to, publish everything everywhere as much as possible to, get our content out to as many people as possible. And you're going to see a lot more from us, in terms of like when you make a YouTube video, it's going to get put out on all those places. Or when there's a new book club announced, it'll go to all those places. And so I'm even thinking of making like a Geeknights Reddit, and every time we post something on the website, a new link is added to the Geeknights Reddit. Just go all out like this, see how it works, see how much we can spread the community around. And if you want to go to the website, you can do that too.
Yep.
It's improved. I think it's easier to navigate. It has more information on the front page.
Don't forget that if you go to our website, every episode back to October 31st, 2005 is on the website for download. Still free.
And, I'm going to keep adding more stuff to it, like at about the rate of like a feature per week probably. And I got a whole list of awesome features that I'm considering. I've already mentioned a few, like Reddit integration and such. So, our website doesn't suck anymore as much, and you should go to it.
Yep, and expect a lot more stuff to come. Like maybe we might start doing these sort of live pre-roll, post-roll of just doing Geek Nights, just more content. More YouTube videos, more Radio Free Equestria, more stuff. I guess also to all you people who complain about us not consuming media you've asked us to consume or doing things you want us to do, it's because we're doing stuff like this. You know how long we've been talking about this stupid website change?
It took me, even speaking of Memorial Day, right? It took 4 days to do this shit, and I had already done a great deal of it in advance. It just took 4 days to sort of finish it up, and there was a lot of stuff that I just sort of bailed on and didn't do that you might not notice I have to go and do.
I've still got...
like, I disabled all the sitemaps because they stopped working. I had to go reprogram them.
I'm still, editing HD video for, I don't know, 2 packs' worth of stuff I've got videos for. I haven't
even tested if the episode uploading works. So I'm gonna have to sit here.
We're gonna find out in a few minutes.
Yeah, we are. All right.
Yeah. So we've gone on a while, so I don't think I'm gonna try to tell like the entire tale of my travels, since this was basically the show about.
Well, that's the thing is whenever we don't have an episode for a while,
we got just
it's sort of like when you don't, get your groove on for a while. It's sort of an explosion of pent up.
We also didn't talk
energy
in person for a while because I was, in Istanbul and we've been busy and there's ConnectiCon
It's a very busy time here with the ConnectiCon coming up.
Yep, like believe me, the week before I went to Istanbul, every night it's just like hours and hours and hours of pouring through panel bullshit and typing stuff in, and suddenly now that the deadline has come is when all the emails come out of the woodwork from staff who say things like, "Oh, by the way, here's 6 hours of content I need scheduled."
Yeah,
and stuff from panelists who were like, "Hey, I didn't submit any panels, but kind of expected you give them to me, and what panels am I doing?
Why didn't you submit them?
Yeah,
you're not getting any."
Slowly trying to grandfather that stuff out and, new website and everything. But I had to get all that as much done possible before I flew to Istanbul. So for like 2 weeks before that trip, I was in La La Land doing that work.
I think what we need to do is we need to make, a mailing list, right, on like MailChimp that has all the people who have ever done ConnectiCon panels who aren't blacklisted and sort of send them out a thing like, attention, panel registration is now open.
I did that this year.
Because Kahil does that for PAX.
I did that this year. And I think it worked because a lot of the people responded to that.
And then we could be like, if you do not, submit, then you will not get a panel, no matter what. And
anyway,
stuff,
we're getting better every year, but this is like crunch time for that. And it's summer, so I got to go outside.
I've been mostly that's the number one thing keeping me from getting stuff done is, the sun's out. I'm going biking.
Yep,
I'll see you. I've run out of places to bike in Manhattan that I haven't been yet.
You should go up into like the Bronx or something.
I did that.
Yeah.
The other day.
How far up? Go to Yonkers.
I didn't go to Yonkers.
Route 9 is a bike path like all the way north.
Yeah, but that's a little too far.
Nah.
I have to. The thing is, I got to go far enough so that I can actually get back home on the same day.
You could go far north and take the train back. Metro North.
I don't want to take the train. I want to bike the whole time.
Depends.
I can only go if like I
bike to Cafe Maya, eat at Cafe Maya, train home.
Not too bad, but I need to buy a train pass at Grand Central before I leave.
It's $5 and never expires.
But you can't buy the train pass at
Beacon. You know what I did? Like 7 years ago, I bought a bike pass and I always keep it in my wallet.
The next time I'm near Grand Central, I'll buy one.
Yeah. It's actually, I don't know where it is right now, but it was in my wallet at one point. I'm going to have to buy another one.
All right, so let's talk about turkey gobble gobble.
So Istanbul, the first thing I should say is that it is, people might have different visions of what a city like Istanbul is like because they imagine other foreign cities and strange places.
Well, people who haven't traveled, right, have all these imaginations.
Istanbul is, other than the fact that people are speaking Turkish and there's old stuff around, you might as well be in London or New York or DC or Tokyo. It is a completely modern, subways and taxis, and everyone takes credit cards and everything's normal and everything's chill and it's safe. It was literally like a completely modern city, except that it didn't smell like piss.
That's good.
I was amazed by this. The entire city. Now, it might just be the season.
So it wasn't like India where people were littering everywhere?
There was almost no litter anywhere.
That's good.
And everything smelled either neutral or of the sea or of flowers.
Oh, well, that's right. Well, I mean, you got seas on both sides here, right?
Yeah, the divide of Asia and Europe, the Bosphorus River.
It's not, so it's sort of like
Golden
Seattle.
Horn,
You
all
got
that stuff.
No matter what, it's like the wind can blow in 4 different directions, and no matter which direction it's going, it's probably picking up some sea air.
I mean, every time I get to PAX, it's like, oh, right, the fresh air. This air is going to go through a bunch of America before it gets to me in New York.
Yeah.
But it was, basically I had one whole day when I flew in just to kind of wander around. And it was kind of humbling. Like, I've visited old places before, but I stood on a road that was, 1,000 years ago, that road was already ancient and the origins of it had been mostly forgotten. And there were just normal houses on that road today. And it was the same road that 1,000 years ago, armies marched on, emperors might have ridden on a chariot down. It was...
Well, yeah, it's like in Connecticut, the best you could hope for is some revolutionary militia marched down this road or defended here. It's like, when was that? 17 something. It's like, It's like, yeah, okay, see this road? Alexander the Great was on this road.
I mean, there were columns. There's a bunch of columns around, just randomly. You're walking down the street. Like a normal street, there's a tramway there and a subway entrance, and there's a little fence. In the middle of the fence is a giant Roman column that at one point held something up. And it's got the original...
But it's not holding up anything anymore. It's just
whatever
column.
that was, an old aqueduct.
They did a really
gone.
good job of making columns and a really bad job of making the other parts.
The other parts got torn down to build, normal buildings because the city is still being lived in. In fact, there's more people there than in New York City.
Man, but if you had a working aqueduct, why would you tear it down? Even an old Roman aqueduct is still really freaking useful if it works.
Yeah, to a degree.
And it's really awesome looking. You shouldn't tear it down.
Yeah, but, wars happen. Turkey, that's the
other thing.
Istanbul, as you may recall, was Constantinople.
Well, King of Kings.
And
look upon my works, ye mighty.
We've talked, all you listeners, we've talked about this a lot many years ago, but there's a podcast called 12 Byzantine Rulers. And it's pretty much the best podcast you're ever going to listen to. Forget Geeknights. You should just listen to this thing.
Yeah, right.
But
why are you listening to us?
But so,
well, I mean, you should not listen to us as in you should not have this podcast in your iTunes, but you should listen to us as in if you are listening to this podcast right now, you should do as we tell you. That meaning of the word listen.
But most people in America don't really know about the Eastern Roman Empire. They know, all right, Rome fell in 476.
Nero.
Yep, they're like, there's Greeks, and then there's Rome. And in 476, Rome fell. And then Dark Ages, and then Renaissance.
Most people don't even know that.
They kind of...
I didn't even know that much.
And I remember I have a Western Civ textbook, and I think the last time we talked about this, I pulled it out and quoted from it, because it devotes one paragraph saying that the Eastern Roman Empire lasted much longer and was called Byzantium.
It actually said something.
Yeah. So people forget that, 476, Western Roman Empire fell. 1,000 years later, 1476, around that time is when the rest of the Roman Empire fell.
Well, it's sort of one of those situations where it's like, let's say Virginia was wiped off the map. People will be like, yeah, West Virginia stuck around for a little while, right? It's like
Except
no one gives a shit
case,
about West Virginia.
The Eastern Roman Empire was arguably greater in extent and everything than, the Western Roman Empire ever was.
Well, West Virginians would say the same thing.
Yeah, but we kind of...
Except they're wrong and the Byzantines are right.
To be fair, the West Virginians did
sucked.
side with the Union in the War of Northern Aggression.
I didn't say they didn't. It's still a really shitty, meaningless state. Perhaps the only more meaningless state is North Dakota, but at least the thing is,
North Dakota leaves well enough alone. And
well,
that's
the thing about North Dakota is that it's so meaningless that you sort of pay more attention to it because it's like being in last place. West Virginia is sort of like second to last place, so it's like you're completely ignored.
Now, North Dakota is not last place. They may be irrelevant, but I point out North Carolina, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia.
Well, no, those are the worst. I'm talking about like the least, noticeable, not the, the place of the worst people. Neither one of those is even close to being the place of the worst people. Not, it's just the smallest, least thought about by other states, insignificant, forgotten state.
But I mean, the Eastern Roman Empire was basically the progenitor of the Renaissance when the intellectuals fled when the greatest city in the world finally fell. I think the quote from 12 Byzantine rulers was some French night when, the Crusades happened and a big, Constantinople finally fell at least once. And the guy said something to the effect of, I think more houses burned down in this one fire in the middle of this battle than exist in all of France. But I digress. So this is, an ancient city. For, 1,000 years ago, the city was already ancient and already the center of what many people consider to be the civilized world, if not the entire world. And I saw columns that were ancient 1,000 years ago. And the coolest part was that some of those were even more ancient. There's one called the Serpent Column.
And has a serpent engraved on it?
Yeah, I didn't know about the serpent columns. I'm going to pull up Wikipedia to make sure I don't say anything wrong. But basically...
I'm going to pull up Wikipedia to make sure I don't say anything wrong.
But, I was standing there and I was looking at it, and there's a little plaque that explained that it was from... Okay, it looks like the plaque is correct. So...
yeah, you can't always trust plaques. Like, I was in Jerusalem, and there was a plaque, like, this is the tomb of David. It's like, that is not the tomb of King David.
The Serpent Column was relocated to Constantinople by Constantine the Great in the year 324.
As in the Constantine.
Yes.
Not some other guy named Constantine.
Constantine I.
The guy.
The Great.
He picked up this column somewhere else because he thought it was awesome.
So the
and
column...
he had slaves or who knows who carry
slaves,
it.
He probably had so here's the deal. This column... in the year 324 was ancient history and was brought as an artifact to be put in the greatest city in the world.
Sort of like how he brought the pyramid and put it in our museum
yeah,
in the
or
middle
how,
of our city.
New York, yeah, not the pyramid, the Egyptian column.
Right.
I point out, next to the serpent column is a similar...
Are you talking about Cleopatra's Needle, or are you talking about...
Is a similar Egyptian column to what we have in New York that the Byzantines stole from Egypt. You know what? Theirs is in much better condition than ours is.
No kidding.
So... this column was ancient history in the year 324, and they brought it to make a monument about it.
Yeah, so it's the year, let's see, so our...
2012.
So we have a cloister here. It's like a castle. It's really, FDR, I think, built that, right? It's not even, maybe 100 years old at best. Not even? No, not even 100 years old, right? This thing, let's see, the year 300, the year 2000. So 1,700 years. And it's already ancient at that point.
So, Scott, 1,000 years ago, the Serpentine Column had been in Constantinople since before anyone could remember.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I think we've done enough talking about how old and awesome old things are.
No, but specifically this old thing.
But I mean, yeah, it is... Old things are the awesomest, so we could just call this episode the Old Things episode and talk about the rest some other time.
So, Scott, the column
we could talk about old things all day.
Scott, the column is 2,500 years old.
Yeah,
2,500.
Old things are worth talking about for all the we should just do every episode of Geeknights. Should be about another... Change it. It's no longer Geeknights. It's the Old Things podcast.
All right, so next episode, Scott Johnson.
Well, I mean,
old man Scott.
There are other things we could talk about that are pretty old.
That's mostly to see if
you want to talk about like Angkor Wat.
Geeknights.
I mean, maybe I don't know. Angkor Wat's probably not as old as that Serpent Column.
The
but
Serpent
it's still
Column's
pretty old.
It's
pretty old. This is older stuff though.
So you know what? Well, you can read about the Serpent Column and what it's made out of and why it's extra cool. But it was just there, just kind of hanging out.
Well, it's gotta be made out of stone, right? I mean,
but even there was a much newer object that really got to me. It was a column, and it had inscriptions on it from the era of Justinian and earlier. And they were kind of faded but visible. And you look at them, and they're basically carvings of Romans. It's the kind of carving we would make today.
Okay, I was gonna say it's Latin. I'm like, how can you read it?
So that's the thing. this was the Eastern Roman Empire.
It says Ecavus.
Many things are in
Okay.
Greek, but the inscription at the bottom of this column was in Latin.
Yeah.
And I could read it other than the fact that I don't read Latin.
That's what I'm saying. It's like,
but the letters were there, and I kind of had this moment of someone, and history is so ancient I can't even fathom it, chipped those words there. And at that time, there were things in this city that were themselves as ancient to that guy as the thing I'm looking at now that he made is to me.
mm-hmm.
Otherwise, Istanbul, like, I just wandered around, and I grew a beard before I went on the trip, and I dressed in like a blazer and nice pants and a dress shirt, like every day walking around the city. As a result, the sharks that go after tourists left me alone, which was amazing because basically there would be like 10 people who would like descend upon anyone wearing cargo shorts who was obviously a middle-aged American and just try to rip them off. They completely ignored me.
Mm-hmm.
The few people who did try to bother me didn't try English first. They tried German, Arabic, and French, but they never tried English. It was amazing. And the few people...
But hey, that guy is that multilingual.
Yes.
Right? At least, is he the thing is, you think, oh no, he just learned how to, give his sales pitch in those languages. It's like, no, if he hits at you with Arabic, right, or, French, and you start talking to him, he's got to be able to converse to really...
Exactly.
This guy is that multilingual, yet the only thing he can find to do with his life is to, pull some scam on the streets. It's
Scott,
like, dude, you could be translating like comics or something.
Scott,
shit.
do you know how much money I could make from tourists in Istanbul? Oh my god.
So is he making more money as that than he could make as like a UN translator?
Probably.
Damn.
Good God. The only people who actually tried to rip me off is a few times they'd be really persistent and they'd try so many languages. Because they spoke so many languages, I couldn't get away with trying to use any of the languages I know words in because what if they respond? Like, now what? So I responded to people who were really persistent. I said, Ma'alaman Verhoten. I figured no one would speak Finnish, and no one did.
Yeah,
so
that's a rare one.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing is, the way you say it, if the guy is so multilingual, he's got to be smart. He might be like, yeah, that's not your native language, dude. I got you.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
I did it pretty confidently.
Yeah, you could do it confidently.
I might as well have said Baff my dad.
Yeah.
But they basically completely left me alone. No one tried to rip me off, and I think it was just because I didn't dress like an American tourist.
Yeah, probably.
But while everyone
it's the same way, it's the same thing on this. When I walk around outside my office, right? There's the people trying to sell you comedy show tickets.
Yep.
They used to bother me just because there used to be different guys who would do it, and they would bother every single person. But now it's like I walk out there. I don't have a camera on me most days.
Yep.
I'm not,
No, in New York, no one even ever tries to hand me whatever it is they're trying to hand me.
Yeah, I'm not walking slowly looking up at the buildings. I'm obviously not a tourist. So this guy's standing there. He's like, where you from, man? Where you from? Where you from? Hey, how you doing there? Hey, big guy, what's up? And I'm just
rap CDs.
Yeah, doesn't even look at me because I'm not a tourist. And you can tell by looking at me. If a tourist walked down the street wearing my clothes at my speed, he also would not be bothered.
But a lot of people spoke English, even, way away from touristy stuff. So I could get around just fine on my own. And I saw a lot of really cool stuff that I'll either talk about in another show, I'll get my pictures uploaded or whatever. But I felt safer and more comfortable walking around even very poor and remote neighborhoods in Istanbul in the middle of the night than I do in some places in the Bronx.
That's a Bronx rap.
The poorest
part foods.
I walked through some of the slummest parts of Istanbul, and they were actually a lot nicer than some of the poor parts of New York City. They were way nicer than a lot of parts of Baltimore.
Oh, Bmore. Oh, damn. I mean, Bronx is like a palace compared to Bmore.
Turkish coffee is a big deal there. They think American coffee habits are ridiculous.
No kidding.
They're like, they have this perception of us drinking 7-Eleven style big gulps of watery ass decaf coffee.
Well, a lot of people do.
And I was like, yeah, that's pretty much what people do.
But most people, I think, now at least get big gulps of Starbucks as opposed to big gulps.
Those might not be legal anymore in New York if that stupid law passes.
I was wondering, is that law going to apply to Starbucks or only
to soda? It covers coffee.
It does cover coffee.
If the coffee is sweetened, but it does not cover milkshakes or milk-derived things, nor does it cover espresso-based drinks.
So some of the beverages at Starbucks can't be venti and Trenta, but others can?
Here's the stupidity of this law. It bans a 20-ounce soda from a bodega because the bodega also serves food, but it does not ban a 4-gallon milkshake.
Nice. Dude, let's open up a restaurant. 4-gallon milkshakes is all
No,
we got.
you know what we should do? Let's come up with a cup that is actually 2 cups, but they're banded together.
Oh,
And just sell that to restaurants.
Well, you got the straw with the split straw.
Yeah, but
no,
it's a cup with 2
we
cups.
don't know. We don't even have to sell the cups that are attached to each other.
A holder for 2 cups.
We just sell the split straw, and that's it.
No, you got to sell a thing that makes 2 cups into one so I can walk around.
Oh, so it's got
Kinda
like a
like how-
handle with 2 holes in it?
Kind of like how every hotel that wants to get around our actually very important water conservation laws, 2 shower heads.
Daddy 2 shower.
Exactly.
Daddy 2 pee-pee.
Oh, also, you know what? You can just drink the water. It's fine.
Oh,
you can
really?
eat any food.
Well,
it's
there's a lot of
fine.
water there. It's not like
Yeah,
it's,
but you can just...
do you know? Did you figure out where the water came from? I mean, it's not. I mean, are those fresh water? Those are seas, right?
There's
I don't think
also
they're fresh.
fresh water.
Are they fresh?
No, there's a sea and there's the Bosphorus and there's other lakes and
Yeah,
things.
yeah. It's the Bosphorus. Was it the
But
Baltic?
Scott, the
and
tap
the-
water tasted as good as New York tap water.
I'm sure it did, but I'm saying is I'm wondering where it came from, right? Because those?
How
I don't.
many New Yorkers know where our water comes from?
I know exactly where it comes
I
from.
know you do. How many New Yorkers know?
Probably not that many think about it.
So the restaurants I ate at
There's an aqueduct from the Catskills. It's
What was
actually the
interesting is that
longest
the
underground
seafood
tunnel.
was so good.
Well,
because they catch it right
they fish
there.
it right there. Yeah.
Like there's a million people fishing like on the river connecting.
Oh, that's probably a way to make a fuck ton of money if you
yeah.
live
So
there.
I had fish that they brought them to the restaurant. They were still wet when they dumped them out.
and then they
And
put
I
'em
ate
in
those
there.
fish.
Oh,
They were like
snap.
these little river fish. And
oh, little fish.
yeah, they were like this big,
So
like
did they
4
like?
inches long.
So it was like head comes off, tail comes out. Here's the fish.
Yeah, so
Knife
to,
goes in, guts
to
come out.
quote a friend that I have now in Turkey, Americans are afraid of heads and eyes on anything they eat.
I'm not afraid of the head
So
and
he
eye
was-
being
he had-
on it. Still, I'm just not gonna eat that part.
Yeah, so he was like, "Are you afraid of heads?" I was like, "Fuck no." They realized early on that I'm not a typical American, so they regaled me with their perceptions of Americans, and my job was to say, "Yes, they're like that," or "No, they're actually not like that." Like I
That is a
explained,
good. That is a good thing to do.
like I
a
explained
few
how
people in the world will be more understanding
point
of
they
other
were like-
countries in both directions.
at one point they were like, "So really, the imperial system?" And I was like, "All right, so here's the deal." Americans actually only use like 3 or 4 kinds of units for anything, and they don't use. It's not that they don't use the metric system; they don't use the imperial system either. They just don't talk about volume ever. And if
or
they do,
distance,
it's gallons.
or
Like Americans don't need a unit of mass because they never use mass for anything.
except how much do you weigh? That's the only
Yep,
thing.
that's weight and not mass. So they use pounds because that's a unit of weight, but they don't use slugs, the mass unit. But it's not that they use metric. They just don't use a unit for mass. And if they're a scientist, they use the metric system because they're not stupid.
That's right.
So once I explained that and how we also think the system is stupid and most of us don't even use it or know how it works, they were very surprised by that, and it kind of made sense.
See, the thing is, we have this sort of, when anyone goes to another country, even I assume really ignorant people, right? There is sort of a cultural exchange that happens no matter what, even if it's a very small one.
Yep.
Right? But the thing is, we're coming to this world where, there's still a great deal of international cultural boundaries, but we're having cultural boundaries even within countries, the nerds versus the whoever's.
Well,
and I don't
we've
feel
said this before. A nerd in Istanbul has more in common with you and me and some nerd
Right.
in Tokyo than we do with people
But
who
we
live
need- I
20
think
miles north of New York City.
We need more cultural exchange between the non-countried cultures, right? The nerd culture isn't, is pretty willing to share and teach other people about nerd culture, but no one's really interested in hearing, and no one really feels the need to share their culture with nerds either.
Nah.
We need more exchanges of this nature in the other, areas that are not simply country borders.
All right. So, hey, homophobic guy in a really rural part of the country.
Listen to
of the US.
Geeknights and learn something, and
you
then
know what?
we want to learn about you and your guns.
Yeah. We
You-
don't
you
care.
know what? Some of that stuff's pretty cool. Blowing
thing is,
stuff
we-
up in the
I
backyard,
feel
we're on
like-
board.
I feel like telling them what we really think wouldn't matter. Like if we went to them, we're like, you know what? We really don't care if you have guns. We're like, we literally go nuts. We don't care.
But it's like,
But you
I feel
have to
like-
not hate gay people in your laws. That's all we want.
For a small amount of time, you hang out with guys like that. I feel like, we could get along on some common grounds.
Yeah.
Even the most hickest, racist guy, because it's like,
very few
go
people
in the backyard, set food on fire, set things on fire.
It's got very few people can
drive
resist
a
the
car.
allure of blowing something up in the middle of the woods.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like, anyone can get along with anyone. I mean, even if I went to Turkey and it happened to be like, crazy fundamentalist guys I was working with, we could
Actually, what was funny is
we could get along for a short time if I wasn't Jewish.
By and large, the people I talked to in Istanbul really, really are sick of the religious people fucking everything up.
Well,
And-
I think that's because it's the same situation we have here. We're in the city, out of the
Yep.
city.
What was funny is a lot of them would complain about Muslims the way atheists in America complain about Christians.
Nah.
Just because Muslims are the guy next door beating a drum in the middle of the night because it's Ramadan or whatever. And they
Man,
really...
at least no religious practice, at least not many in the U.S. that are common, involve bothering neighbors.
Well, church bells, but at least they're kind of pleasant.
Church bells are nice. I like
One
church
guy I was
bell.
talking to at a restaurant was like, oh my God, the call to prayer, just shut up. It's so loud. And I got to tell you, the call to prayer is really goddamn annoying, but not for any religious reason.
Doesn't it sound good? No?
It would if it wasn't primarily blasted through the worst possible
PA
speaker.
system?
No, I'm talking like
the horn-shaped
it
thing?
sounds like they got like a Radio Shack speaker and put a megaphone in front of it. It is like, it would be beautiful, but for that.
You know what you could do is you could actually start a thing where the Muslim people would probably donate to it because it'd be like a religious
Oh my God, just
charity.
go around the world and replace those
And
speakers with nice
you
speakers.
just upgrade their sound system, and you could partner with like an
Scott,
audio.
I think you're a genius. I think making
You partner
the
with
speakers-
like a speaker company, right? And you find a Chinese factory and mass produce like a perfect speaker just for that.
I think making speakers
And you can make
for
it-
mosques to do the call to prayer that were good would do more for non-Muslim relations than anything else in the world we could ever do.
It would be great.
Because I got to tell
And
you,
and the religious people would pay for it partially, right? They would be happy to donate to because in addition, because the way we'd sell it to them is in addition to upgrading, we would also add new ones so it would reach further to places where you maybe couldn't hear it, like bathrooms. And that way, it's a way to sell more speakers too.
But anyway, Istanbul was awesome, and to cut the show short, I'll talk about it more later. Germany, the only things I'll say is they serve beer by the liter. It
Yep.
just kept coming.
Do you get any wieners?
If they bring you bread or pretzels on a table, they check how many you ate and charge you for them at the end.
Oh, it's bullshit. But there's no tipping though, right?
People didn't seem to care about tipping. I asked the taxi driver, I was like, how much should I tip? He was like, euro or two, it doesn't really matter. No one cares.
All right.
And he actually didn't want to tip because he was Turkish, and I just got in
A
from
Turkish
Istanbul.
taxi driver in Germany?
So in Munich,
What luck?
in Munich, there's so many Turkish people.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Actually, there's a huge
They took the
Turkish
same
population.
flight you did.
Well, he's a taxi driver who's lived there like forever, and he's like, I'm going to Istanbul next week to see some family.
All right.
So we talked about Istanbul, and he actually complained about a lot of the same things, and it was funny. Germany.
That's how you know, right? If a taxi driver in Munich complains about the same things in Istanbul as a guy in Istanbul complained about,
Yep.
that's a valid complaint. That's because these two unconnected people were going on the same thing, or they were both the same guy with a disguise in the CIA.
So I have three final anecdotes. We'll end. One, in Germany, I overheard more people speaking English than I do on the streets of New York.
That's good.
And everyone I met who spoke English, their English was, they wouldn't know every
Well,
word.
they had German accents though, right? No.
That was what was interesting. When they spoke English, it was perfect and had like the exact Midwestern, like neutral accent.
They weren't like de Costa.
No, it was like, and it sounded perfectly natural. And the only way you would know they were a non-native speaker is when they struggled for a word they didn't know. But if they knew a word, they spoke it better. Like they spoke it in a very neutral accent that was kind of surprising.
Did you help people out with the words they didn't know?
Yeah. And two,
Because you could usually tell what word someone's going for.
the majority of young people I overheard speaking in English, and every young person was speaking in English,
Yep.
was talking about video games.
Well, because they were interneting, probably.
They were talking
That's where
about.
They got to know English.
They were
on
talking
internet.
about Modern Warfare 2, COD, Call of Duty, and games like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to some of them a little bit. I was like, oh, I play video games, Geeknights,
Well, I mean,
whatever.
LAN parties over there.
Yeah.
It's a PC game world.
I was talking to one of my partners there in English about gaming stuff.
Oh, Emily,
And-
he's got partners in other countries. Watch out.
And basically, this little kid, I overhear him in the next row. He's like, that foreign guy's talking about video games. Oh my God. What game's he talking about? I don't know, some board game. Kid didn't know any of the board games.
Did you bring Spot It and Jungle Speed and whatnot?
I didn't have any time to play
Zendo?
games with anyone at all. But so
because we didn't continue our pattern of board game cultural exchange.
But that was anecdote 1. Everyone in Germany speaks English just fine.
Yep.
Anecdote number 2 in Munich is that I went to many sorts of gardens and things. They have a park like Central Park that's way bigger than Central Park in the middle of the city.
That's not hard to be bigger than Central Park.
But entirely within a major city.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the few that's bigger than Central Park, actually.
All right.
But the gardens in Germany have a symmetry that is almost disturbing. Like, I was walking down the middle of like this big like garden, and I realized it was so symmetrical that I felt like I was in a Counter-Strike 1.6 map.
Who made this garden? How old
Germans,
is it?
I don't know. I don't know a lot about.
It's not Constantine old. Is
I
the
don't
Holy
know
Roman
a lot about
Empire
German
old?
history. All I can say is
Is
that
it Hitler old?
any
How old
garden
is
I
it?
entered had a frightful symmetry and a frightful artificiality. Like, it didn't have streams. It had perfectly straight manicured canals with straight like bridges over them.
You sure it wasn't just that one?
I went to several in Munich and they were all like that.
Maybe it's Munich.
Yeah, but
Maybe there was like some king near Munich.
as Luke Burridge said,
you know,
no, that's not Germany, that's Europe. But we'll see.
Maybe in like the 800s, some king near Munich, right, had
So
had
the
this garden
third
made.
and final anecdote, with one exception, every cab I took in the entire time I was in Istanbul
was a Mercedes Benz.
tried to rip me off.
Oh, that too.
Now, I read online that there is a specific con they will do. Now, there's some basic ones, like they'll run the night rate instead of the day rate. So I learned these Turkish words for day and night, and I'd be like, no, change it to day. I know exactly what you're trying to do, you ass. And they'd always be like, sorry, I missed out. Like, they try to pretend, like they had this speech
just be like, dude, don't have to pretend that you weren't trying to rip me off.
No, you're getting ahead of my anecdote.
Okay.
So the most common one, though, is they will take your money and you'll have like a 50 lira note, which is like $26 or so.
Oh, it's like 50 cents
It's
for
like
a lira?
half.
Okay.
A lira is like about half a dollar, like 1.8 something.
Pretty good.
So they'll take your 50 lira note and then they'll do really good sleight of hand and show you like, no, you gave me a 5. Because tourists are like, oh, sorry, like they don't want to make a confrontation. And this is such a common thing that I was ready for it.
You took a picture of the bill and then...
So I did that once, but I held it out to him, and he goes to take it, and I didn't let go. And I took my phone up, and I took a picture, and I made it make the click, and I looked at him, and he sighed, and then he gave me my right change.
There you go.
Another guy did it, and I didn't take a picture because I was tired. And I looked at him, and I was like, dude, don't bullshit me. I know exactly what you're doing. You do this to everyone. I'll call the police. And he pretended he didn't understand a little bit. And I was like, dude, I know you understand me. It's obvious you understand every word I'm saying. Just give me my change, and I'll give you a tip anyway. And he was like, it usually works.
But
He said that in English, and he gave me the tip. I reported him anyway. But I did give him a 5 lira tip. So.
Yeah, but like if I got in a cab and I knew that everyone was scamming, I'd be like,
one cabbie, when I sat down, I was like, I looked at him, and I was like, I'm not a tourist. Don't try to rip me off. I'm going to the Sheraton in Maslach. Don't pretend you don't know where that is. And he looked at me, then he sighed, and then he drove me to the hotel. One cabbie was this punk kid. He must have been like late 20s. I get in the cab, and I tell him, Sheraton Maslach. That's just where I was staying.
Yep.
But there was a subway station right in front. There was like the equivalent of staying in Queens, like Astoria, next to Manhattan.
Yep.
So I told him, like, Sheraton Maslach, and he was like, Maslach I know, and he didn't speak English that well, and it was obvious. Sheraton, I'm not so sure. So I was like, all right, I'll tell you how to get there. And he was actually, like, he really didn't know. He was super earnest.
Or he's the best actor in the universe.
He didn't try to rip me off. He didn't mess with the meter. He did everything. Like, he was the only cabbie who did not try to rip me off and was earnest the whole time. And, company dime anyway, I gave him like a $30 tip.
Yeah.
Because with the $30 tip would have been cheaper than the guys who tried to rip me off.
That's right.
And he was like, are you sure? When I gave him the extra money? Like, are you sure you don't want change? Do you realize? I was like, yeah, I know.
Yeah,
It's
just
cool.
be like, look, I'm trying to teach you that you're doing it the right way. Every other cabbie in the whole city tries to rip everyone off. You did not try to rip me off.
I explained
This is
that
your
to him.
reward.
I explained to him. I was like, look, you're the first person I've gotten into a cab with the entire time I've been here who did not try to scam me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And I think he understood it at that point, and he had a huge smile on his face, and I got out of the cab.
Yeah.
Kind of like when I was in India, but that was different. That was when I gave the guy I gave a tip to one cabbie at the end that would be the equivalent here of giving a guy like a couple $100. But that was a whole different situation.
Well, but there's a different exchange rate involved
exactly.
there, right? Like if I went to Thailand, I could be like, oh, but
that was
the thing
I had currency shock because I was in Istanbul.
The problem is
then I get to Europe and I'm like, oh shit, euros, my stupid weak ass American dollar. God damn it.
The problem is if you do that too much, you get in big trouble the other way because you draw this attention. Like imagine if someone walked down the street just throwing Benjamins around, right? You'd be like, whoa, shit, son. Right? People be mobbing him, and right, so you can't do that when you go to places that have cheap money.
Yep. But it was super fun, and now I might have to go to Toronto soon. But whatever.
How's the
I don't want to go to
how's the Canadian dollar doing?
I think
isn't it slightly stronger than the U.S. dollar?
U.S. dollar is not looking so good right now.
Not looking so good.
Not looking so good.
Better than the Greeks are lucky they don't have a Yeah, was there any Greek spillover going on there?
Most of the Greeks were expelled from Turkey not that long ago.
But I mean, like, obviously, it's right there. So, didn't the situation in Greece have any effect on the situation in Turkey?
In Turkey, people just laughed like, that's Greece. Like, who else but Quagmire? There was just a Pew study, and it was the funniest thing. I just read it today while I was at work. They interviewed everyone in Europe, like in Germany and Italy and all these countries, and they asked, what country in the Eurozone is the most corrupt? What country is the hardest working? Whatever. Most people, like in Germany, said that Italy is the most corrupt.
Italy's pretty corrupt.
Every other country said that their own country was the most corrupt, which was telling. But in one column, the question was, which country in the Eurozone is the most hardworking? Every single country in Europe, the overwhelming majority of people said Germany, except Greece, which said Greece. I found that hilarious to a degree that I cannot express.
That is hilarious. I think Germany's the most hardworking.
Yeah, Germany is starting to become like the leader of Europe in a lot of ways.
They do have car factories and stuff like that other people really don't have.
Munich was super nice, I gotta tell you. This has been Geeknights with Rym and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geeknights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.